Good evening. This isn't COVID related. This is our Sustainable Communities consultation, the public consultation that we can't have in public because of COVID. So with me is Dean Lund, who is our Sustainable Communities expert. And I guess I'm going to start with some conversation points on how we got here, and then we'll get into some of the more details on it. So I come from a small community. I grew up in the Cardigan area, and I know from a small community standpoint, it's always difficult to get projects off the ground because it's always hard to find your part of the funding. So it's something that I've always struggled with in the community development in small communities where I lived. Shortly after the last election, when I was named the minister responsible for the energy file on PEI, I went to the National Energy meeting, which was in Cranbrook, BC, and it was actually in Kootenay, First Nations community, just basically outside of Cranbrook. And what I found when I was there was energy means a lot of things to a lot of different people, and for the majority of the ministers that were there, they had mines and they had oil or natural gas or something along those lines to worry about. One of the tours that happened during the stay there was the community had taken over the St. Eugene school, which was a residential school, and their concept was they would take that and turn it into something good from something that was bad. And they built an entire resort around it. There's a golf course, and it's quite beautiful in the middle of the mountains. One of the things that their community did was they started investing in projects that would help their community become sustainable, and they had biomass heat that connected their medical center and their school and their resort that they ran, and a number of other initiatives kind of in that sphere. So when I was coming back home from BC, I was thinking what were the takeaways that I could bring back to Islanders from that meeting, and I know we don't have oil or gas to explore, and I knew that would never be an option for us, and it was really stuck in my head what the community had done to become a sustainable, effectively a sustainable community. So we started looking at what models we could employ on PEI to give that same freedom that I had found in that small community in BC, and give that opportunity back to Islanders. So I called Sidney McEwen. We had a conversation about how we could hash this out to be something that all the communities could win from. And that's when Dean came into the picture. So Dean came on board, and we did some research and found an island in Denmark called Samso, who was basically a sustainable island. They produce all their own electricity and produce all their own heat, and everybody on the island owns a part of it, so they're all kind of shareholders into it. So there's direct benefit to the people on that island. So we're at the point where we're trying to make this a kind of a more commercialized product so that the communities can actually do it. So that's what this consultation is about right now. And what we're looking for is, you don't have to have a full idea. We're looking for community champions, and what we mean with community champions is we're looking for people who care deeply about their community, who have vision for what they would do if they had money to help access funding and that type of thing. It might be paint the local church, it may be build a ball field, maybe build a soccer field, it may be build any number of things that would be important, or have any number of things inside your community that you think would be important to have people there. And that's the basis of sustainable communities. So there's an energy component to it that we think is important, but the whole idea is much more broad than just energy. So the conversation I think we're going to have here this evening is going to hopefully break that out a little bit better and give people an idea of what we'd be looking for in a sustainable community applicant, and how we will help you take an idea and turn it into a full-fledged idea that will benefit your community. So I'll turn it over to Dean.
Hi, and I think that the best way to probably start it off was actually we did go on a best practice mission to SAMSO after we kind of picked it out early as an island that is kind of replicable to Prince Edward Island. I will add it's 1/50th the size of Prince Edward Island, but we thought even if you could capture what they have and multiply it over the island. It's not something that's going to be conquered in one day by any means. But what was your best take back from SAMSO?
Well, I guess outside of the, there was some pretty interesting technology that they almost said invented there. It felt like, the straw bale burner was one that stuck in my mind, but it was the people for me. It was the fact that somebody went around their community and got everybody to be a part of it, and they basically championed it. And the biggest takeaway is we can build all the stuff that they had. We can help community get anything, but without that community champion component. So I think for me, it was how they rallied the people to get behind this, and how the people are still benefiting today. Probably 20 years after the fact.
Yeah. So you think, I know people out there are thinking that you need to have the technical knowledge in order to take one of these projects on, but SAMSO attacked it with a gentleman named Soren 20 years ago, who had just been laid off from the pig processing plant that closed on their island. It was their primary employment for a good portion of the island, and he took it upon himself to go around the community and try and improve it. All 4,000 residents.
Yep. So it was pretty amazing. I think that the fact that they did it proves that it can be done.
Right.
And if you break BEI up into the chunks of the size of SAMSO, that's basically what our small communities are. So, if we take communities like Mount Stewart or Tignish or Alberton, O'Leary, they're all kind of the size of community that could tackle this, but a much smaller one could also tackle this and turn it into a product for themselves.
Exactly. And our next step on that trip actually took us to Gottage in Germany. They're into obviously much bigger and advanced stuff, but I think the take back would be similar, right? It's the community.
Very much. The community was very engaged in the processes that we saw. And it was in the outskirts of Gottage, and I can't even remember the name of the two little towns.
It was two small towns that, I think it was 500 houses on either side, with this biomass plant located in the center. They were using corn chaff as their fuel, putting it through a digester, and then piping that gas into the two communities for their district heating system.
Yeah, and I think there's opportunities for projects like that here too, just because we have an agricultural community and we have a byproduct of agriculture, and if it can be used to generate energy in some form, it's certainly worth exploring.
I think we're an efficient island, but like anywhere, there's waste products from every one of our industries that could hopefully be captured into some of these energy models.
Absolutely.
I think the next big piece we wanted to focus on were some questions that we've had coming in. So we'll start with those. I know there's some that are going to come in from online as well, so we really hope people will send them in, but we asked people to send some forward in advance of this, just so that we could kind of get an idea of where people were. And the first one we have is, what is a community champion, and do you exclusively mean members of municipal councils? And that one's from Robert in Tyne Valley.
Yeah, so I guess the community champion is the person who takes this on and starts drawing their community into it. We're not looking for a politician. We're looking for somebody who cares about where they live and sees a path forward that people could benefit from it. We're not discouraging politicians by any stretch of the imagination, but it doesn't have to be a municipal council or any government source at all. Anybody who can draw people together to do this will be welcome with open arms, I think, by our group as we try to move this forward. They also don't have to have, as you already said, any expertise in any energy system or any system at all, for that matter. If they have an idea of something that they'd like to do, then we will help them develop that idea into a full plan. So you don't need to have money, and you don't need to be an expert. You basically need to have the desire to see better for your community and the will to go out and convince others that to follow you into this path, and I think we'll help you the rest of the way.
And that kind of falls into what I think one of the best parts of this project is we've decided that we're going to break down those traditional barriers of what a municipality would be, and that a community, for the purpose of the initiative, being any group of like-minded people, that if you can get together and work collaboratively on a project, then we're here to help you.
Yep, 100%.
All right, these projects have to be exclusive to energy. How about water quality or sustainable transportation? And that's from Sandra in Charlottetown, John in Kensington.
Yeah, it can be anything. The sky's the limit. I don't think that they're certainly not just looking at energy projects, but I mean, that could definitely be a component if that's what you saw fit for your community. We've talked about what if somebody came forward and wanted to have a pod of electric cars that could be used by community members to go to appointments or shopping for their groceries or whatever, that could be managed centrally. You know, anything would be an option if you want to bring better internet to your community and deliver it door to door to all the residents to give yourselves the best internet that's available. We will help make that plan a reality, but we're looking for, what we're really looking for is the visionary part is, if you could bring a model of sustainability that was even profitable at the other end. Is there parts to your community that you would help it grow? Like where's the growth for your community? What will keep people there? What will make people want to move there? And what are the things, if you could turn this into a profitable cooperative enterprise in your community, that you would do for your community? And it could be, like I said before, something as simple as a ball field, and it might be something as complex as a new community center that everyone can benefit from. The sky's really the limit. We want people to look at their community and look at it for the next 30 to 40 years and build today for that mindset.
I think it's safe to say we love every project in government to always be looked at through a green lens, but we're talking sustainable both socially, economically, and environmentally. Don't think that it has to be only environmentally green projects necessarily, but
No.
Can one individual spearhead a project, or do a certain number of people, residents, have to have a stake in the project? And that's from William in Kelly's Cross. I think we touched on a bit of that.
Yeah, so I mean, we're looking for your model. You bring the model to us and tell us. I don't think we're not trying to limit anything. Clearly, if we were going to do a community project, it would have to have some sort of a community component. So, I think that talking to your neighbors and bringing them on board is important to some degree. And a community can be any size. I grew up in Martinvale, which most people wouldn't know where that is, but there wouldn't have been more than 8 houses there, so that's why you wouldn't know. So to me, that was my community where I grew up, and it was very small. A community can be any size, but we're really hoping that people can come together and work together and then use the benefits of it to help either keep their community from getting any smaller, and in some cases even help grow it.
That was an interesting takeaway too from Sam. So it was, there's a lot of talk about, how much money the project will make as a residue of the project, and that too is important. But I think what they realized quickly is that it doesn't necessarily need to be a money-making enterprise. They were growing the straw on their island versus importing the oil from Russia, which to them meant more to their community by keeping those dollars in their community and having to continue to recirculate there instead of leaving the island.
Yeah, and then one of the things that I really liked about their model is they were buying straw from farmers, but they were paying a premium price for dry straw. So farmers were actually getting a much better price for straw than they would selling it for bedding, as a byproduct. So it became, I think it became a good relationship for both of them. Farmers were able to become a little more profitable, and the community was able to use a byproduct of farming to heat a village in their town, which I thought was nice.
And they didn't have the advantage we have even of a forestry and aquaculture industries to go with it.
Right.
When do you expect projects to start rolling after submitting a proposal? What happens after I apply? And that's Mitch from Facebook.
Well, I don't know. That might be a better question for you.
You know what? I can probably jump in on that one a little bit. I mean, as the projects start to come in, look, we have a few projects that have been kind of flown through us, but a lot of them are what I would consider your traditional cookie cutter projects that are really just looking for financing. They don't need support in helping launch them. This is why we're asking for these bigger vision ideas that are probably going to take a little time to cultivate them, one, from your mind, but then we want to help you be the one to connect inside of your community and take them to the next step and hopefully put you along the path of feasibility, and then we'll be shovel ready. So there's no way to put a timeline on it. Depends on what the scope of the project is, but soon is what we love,
Yeah, I guess we anticipated being able to do one this fall. COVID put us off step, I think, right across government, not just in this project. So we're 3 or 4 months behind where we probably want it to be. But that said, if we could get something done this fall, we still will.
Yes, 100%.
And if it has to get put around to the fall and spring, then we may have numerous projects ready to go in the spring. But either way, we're committed to making this work.
we have a lot of good ideas coming in. Is this Sustainable Communities Initiative a pilot program or launched for a certain period of time, or is this program here to stay? And that's Anna Marie in Alberton.
Well, it's here to stay for a while for sure. I mean, every government program eventually ends. I mean, this one would end if we got to 100% community uptake in it. But at this point, it's an open call that will stay open, and communities can always come in. I expect we'll have more people submit ideas while we're actively promoting it versus when we're not. But that said, if it's something that people want to think about, we don't need to know next Monday that you want to do it. We could hear from you 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 4 months from now, if you want to take the time to go around and talk to your neighbors and ask them what they thought. This will still be here when you're ready for us.
Right. Yeah, and don't feel you need to come with we'll end up directing you a few times to princeedwardisland.ca/sustainable, and on there is our request for expression of interest, where we'll ask you for a bit of information on your project, but really the only thing we need you to have in order before you end up coming to us is hopefully the support of your community, like that you're coming as a champion.
Yeah.
All right, another one. We are a Lions Club wanting to look at options for our new affordable seniors housing project. Is this something that would be considered? Solar, for example. This is Barry from Facebook.
Yeah, well, we probably have a program already that will help do that, but
We're hoping this would be one piece of that potential.
Lions Club would definitely be a group that would be a great community champion,
Right.
who could look at maybe the surrounding areas around the new affordable building and say, can you also service that neighborhood or the streets that are close by or the houses that are close by there. So we're definitely open to have a discussion with anybody. And no idea is a bad idea. No. Sometimes if there's an opportunity for it to be bigger, then a Lions Club would be a really good group to have proceeds of that, because I know that it would get put to good use in the community.
Right. Our service groups make some of our best champions on the side.
Absolutely.
I have a group who would like to participate. Would there be room for future growth if more people move into my area and can tie into our grid? And that's Daryl from Bonshaw.
So yeah, I guess SAMSO did that. Do you recall how that worked there?
They did it. So when they did their district heating system, it was a good way to do it. Everybody who was on it, you could pay $20 to make sure that the pipe end was added to your property as it went by. If you chose not to sign that $20 cooperative fee and you went to do it after the fact, you'd be paying full market fee for a pipe hookup, which would be about $2,000. So as they were going door to door, soliciting support and collecting these $20 per household, and built up what became their initial seed fund, virtually every house along the line signed up, even if they had no intention of hooking up until a later date.
Right. And as we looked at what your particular idea is, I mean, not knowing what it is, and helping you get through that design phase, which we will, I think we have committed to do, or help you do that. Those will all be considerations that will be looked at. Is what is it scalable, and how is it scalable, and how does somebody new that moves into your area? Because part of the sustainable community models is growth. Right. So if we can help your community grow, we want the people to be attracted to your community because you're doing this. And if they're attracted to your community because we're doing this, then certainly we would like them to have an opportunity to participate when they get there. And I think that's a model that we can work out. And probably the first time we help somebody through this, then we might be experts in giving advice on this.
Yeah, better advice as we get through a project.
Yeah.
What are expected benefits of signing on to the Sustainable Communities Initiative? That's Corey from Freeland.
I think that's the question that we're asking.
Right.
So unlike other government programs where we tell you that, this one we're asking you to tell us what the benefit is to your community. And I think that is really important to me on this file. Is we can do all these things. We can build bike lanes in your community. We can build solar and wind and district heating and help you get electric cars to share, and any number of things we could do to help with your community. But how does the community, what's the direct community benefit after they're there? Besides the fact that they have this stuff, and besides the fact that they could effectively lower their energy costs in their own homes, any profits that are made off it. That's kind of what we want to know, is how do you see this helping grow your community?
Right. Like, does it eventually help fund a new ball field or
right.
or sidewalks or repairs?
Or do you have a rink that you're having trouble paying for now? That will it help that? Or, is there a church that's the center point of your community and you'd like to see money go to help maintain it? I mean, it's up to the communities what they think are important for their own future.
Yeah, we know we're going to get the best results by empowering communities as opposed to us telling communities this is what you have to do.
Absolutely.
Would you consider projects that relate to hemp, tidal, wind, solar, and biomass? That's Max in Stanhope and Christopher in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
we don't, to this point, we haven't said no to anything that's come across.
If you have an idea and you think it can be done, then we'll help you take that to a full idea and put some concepts down on paper that will help you accomplish that.
Got another one coming here on community care facilities are generally excluded from rural development programs. Would they be included in this program? That's Jordan from Facebook.
Yeah, so anybody's included in anybody can be a community champion, and if they're so we'll go back to the SAMSO model, which I think is a nice clean model. Everybody benefits from the electricity that is through mostly wind there.
Yep.
Everybody on the island benefits from that, and the district heating, like Dean said, went across every property, and you could choose to hook onto it if you wanted to as it went by your place. So any commercial space would be able to hook on or benefit from it too. So if there's seniors housing or community care facilities or businesses or a pizza shop that's in your community and they want to hook on because there's a benefit, then the community, whoever's championed that project, I would assume they would want to bring them in because it's going to be part of the revenue model at the end of the day.
Right, and I mean, there's nothing to stop a community itself from tackling a community care facility on their own and tying that as part of the benefit of a sustainable project. So,
absolutely.
So no, there's absolutely no limits. Like your mind is your only limit at this point.
Yep.
If a community has an idea that will create energy, does it have to be physically connected to the facility using the power? And could it create energy in one area and apply it to a facility somewhere else? That's Andy in Surrey.
I suspect that's what's going to happen in a lot of cases. We're talking about involving an entire community. So if Tignish wants to power its community, in order to power it, it's going to have to go outside its boundaries to find, either the spot for wind and solar or whatever they want to use to do that. So there's probably not enough physical space inside the community boundaries to make that happen. So I suspect that everybody is going to be looking outside the limits of where they're actually trying to put whatever energy they're using and kind of flow it in. Part of this, and I mean part of what has been kicked off by this, is the Energy Act consultations, which we're also doing at the same time. So as we find limitations through sustainable communities, we have to make sure that we account for that in the changes to the Energy Act, as well as all the other components that are going to feed into the Energy Act that come into play. But sustainable communities will be an important part of that.
Yeah, excellent. Can 2 or more communities come together for a project? That's Jonathan from Facebook.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, 3 or more can. I mean, there's really no limit if communities want to come together. I think that's fantastic, and sometimes groups of communities do work together and work together naturally because they're close by or because it just makes sense. So.
Well, that was the funny part in Gottingen was that was actually 2 separate communities. And 2 communities, when we asked Klaus, the person who did the introduction with us, they actually didn't like one another. But they came together on this one project because they saw the economic and environmental benefit of it.
And it seemed to be working really well for them.
Oh, yeah. They're about to get their first their first dividend this year.
Nice.
How much money is available, and what are the anticipated costs, and how will this impact taxes? That's Morgan from Facebook. That's a lot to unpack.
Well, so there's numerous funds that we'll be able to use for this. It depends on what the idea is. So I mean, we have to flesh that out first. What idea you're bringing forward, because there's a big difference between the cost of a windmill and deciding you want to buy 2 electric cars for a car share. For a car sharing opportunity. So it just depends on what you're bringing forward. What was the last part of that?
The last part of it is how will it impact taxes?
How will it? I don't know that I don't know that it will.
It won't necessarily. It depends
Your life
entirely
will
on the
basically be
project.
the same, except you should be paying less money to live in.
Yeah, and the flexibility we've had in this program is the reason why we can't answer a lot of these questions, is because you could be a municipality and then you can access gas tax and PACE program, and there's lots of options that they have, or you could be a cooperative not-for-profit where you can get into private financing, hopefully with the support of government, as long as, those dividends are being returned back into the community. So
Right.
it's tough to answer those, without.
Yeah, and in some cases, you're right. I always forget about the private part, but I know there's private entities out there that have come forward and said, we could lease to own this to a community,
Right.
Different pieces of equipment that may or may not fit into sustainable communities. They could lease to communities and lease to own. So while you pay down simply by paying your bills, you eventually work towards owning it, and then you start getting the dividends at the other end.
They can lower their operating costs and benefit the community.
Right. So
at the same
10 or
time.
15 years down the road, your community will owe it, which isn't out of the ordinary. And I know that's what happened in Sam. So they put windmills up and they had to pay for them.
Right. And they're paid down by corporations too.
Right.
What are the expected benefits of signing on to the Sustainable Communities Initiative? That's Corey from Freeland.
Well, I think they are what you tell us they are. I think that's you tell me what the benefits are. I think that's the key part for this for me is we don't have the answers, but we're here to help.
Right.
If you have a vision for your community, you tell us the vision, and we'll help you bring it to reality.
Like, I think both of us want to be, potentially energy independence, new infrastructure inside your communities, and hopefully a healthier and stronger community because of it.
Yep. And if it was me, I'd be looking for, lowering costs inside the home by either combining central heat and electrification, or just electrification through maybe solar and wind. I think that, and one of the things, there's really no limit on wind. If you want to build a big windmill that is a many megawatt windmill, like a 3 or 4 megawatt, you could sell shares on it so that you and I could just own our portion of what our light bill is. That kind of idea. I think there's no really limit on what you can do, but you just have to come with the right model, or we'll help you build the right model that will be able to get the proper financing to make that happen.
Right. Perfect. Would you consider projects for growing food for local use? That's Toby and Peggy from Facebook.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think that's a wonderful idea.
Oh, 100%.
It's all fits into exactly what we're talking about. So you come with, it doesn't even have to have a plan. If you want to bring that forward and look at some of the other things that I think Dean has a catalog of stuff that we've seen. It's not everything for sure.
No, you learn something new every day, certainly inside of this project.
Right. And it's a really fast moving, if you're talking about the energy side of it, it's a really fast moving component in the world. So there's always something new, and there's always somebody doing something that's new and creative, and maybe 2 months from now there's a new product that will be more suitable for some communities on the island. We really don't know what people are working on yet.
I think that's mostly it for the questions coming in. For anyone who wants to get in touch with me and talk about this program, certainly email sustainable@gov.pe.ca. My wrapping up point is really don't think right now about what you want to do inside this legislative and regulated framework we have as it exists today, because we do want to know what your idea is if those weren't in the way. And we won't be able to change every law or regulation to make all these projects work, but just try and think of what it'd be like without them. And because a lot of these laws were written 20, 30 or more
Absolutely.
years ago. It's time to find out whether they're still relevant.
Yeah. And I guess for me, so that's my cue to.
That's your cue for your
That's
final
my cue
thought.
too. Well, first I want to thank people who did tune in, even the ones who tuned in because they thought it was a COVID update. I appreciate those who stuck it out and listened to what Dean and I had to say. I think both of us are really excited about this, and I think a lot of the staff that are working on this file are really excited about the opportunity this brings. I know from growing up in a small community that every community on Prince Edward Island is vastly different. Tignish to Alberton to O'Leary are all different communities with all different needs and a different view of themselves. And I think what Sustainable Communities does is it allows that. We want you to be you, and we want you to bring your uniqueness to the table when you bring your passion for your community forward. So we're looking for passionate Islanders who care where they live, who want their children to be able to grow up there, who don't want to see people move away because it has become unaffordable, or they don't have the proper things in their community anymore to make it a community. We want to give you the opportunity to attract people there, to attract people back home to their own communities. We want you to be able to build things for your community that you think are important, and we want to help people lower the cost of living in your community, all the while making it so that there's a moderate profit for your community to use towards something else. And I think that, you know, anybody who's excited about your community and excited about where you live and cares a lot will work with you. You don't have to be elected. You don't even have to want to ever be elected to be a part of this discussion. Community champions come in all forms, and I think it's going to be exciting to see some of the people who champion initiatives for their communities and how we can help them into the next 20 or 30 years of survival. Even if you won't be around to see the 20 or 30 years, you can still be a champion for the people who are going to come after you. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. You can email us at sustainable@gov.pe.ca if you have any ideas. If you want to have personal conversations or small groups where we bring together our group to talk to you or your group, we will do that. We want people to explore this to the fullest, and we want to really give you the opportunity to stay in your community and grow in your community, and that's something that excites me.
If they're excited, I want to hear from them.
All right. Perfect. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Thank you.